joiner to Wanja's Health Diary. Today we explore a brain disease that causes a slow decline in reasoning and thinking skills. Alzheimer's is a condition that affects the brain, and when a loved one gets it, it is very evident by how they run their life every day. However, having Alzheimer's does not mean that this is the end of life, and also it does not end the joy within a family. We welcome Liz to Wanja's Health Diary to share an experience taking care of a loved one with Alzheimer's. So tell us about your relationship with your dad, and how did you get to know that he has Alzheimer's?
Thank you for having me. My dad was a policeman by profession, and one of the things that stands out in my memory from way back when I was a young girl was the time he took to come and sit with us and read us a story, and always taking time to just improve our language by getting us storybooks and all that, and just being present. And so that's the kind of dad I knew. And so in 1985, he got he went into a diabetic coma. And since he was a policeman, he could not continue working, and so he was retrenched on medical grounds. And so we had to move, because he was a senior policeman then, and so we had to move now from the trappings of being a senior policeman at that. And so now we started life as civilians, which was very different from what we were used to before. And I think for my dad, wearing his uniform and just being who he was, he couldn't resonate with being on this other side. So by 1986, we started seeing a decline, but it was not so bad. Then we lost a sister, and then he deteriorated then, because this was, my dad had two wives. The first wife passed on and my mom got married. So this was his daughter from his first marriage, and she was the last born, and they were very close. And so for dad, it really took a toll on him. And then also now remembering he had also lost his job. And so he started going downhill. Then he moves us from a 4-bedroom Mashonite house to a Mabati house round the corner. He was a smart dresser. He's no longer dressing up smartly. He's now wearing his clothes, normal clothes that are smart, but now wears pajamas on top. Starts selling cars in parts. That's when we realized there's a problem with him.
And from your understanding, given your young age, what did you understand about Alzheimer's, or was it, a give and take where you're not sure what you're dealing with?
Initially, we didn't know what we were dealing with, because by the time he was getting sick, I was just completing my 4th form, and my sister was going to Form 1. Now he has already taken me to high school, but he's telling my younger sister, I cannot take you to high school because girls are not educated. They stay at home and wait for a husband to come and marry them. And that's why like, there must be a problem. And then all these other behaviors that we had seen, we thought he could have developed a mental illness, or there was something wrong with him. We didn't actually know there was something like Alzheimer's then.
Alzheimer's, is most people associate it with a condition that is, most common in people above 60 years. There's been a trend in the last few years to see it in younger women. What have you observed?
It's true, not only younger women, but even men.
Yeah, the men as well.
Yes. Because we are realizing now we are getting people who are getting early onset, as early as 40 years. And that means either our lifestyle, but the kind of lifestyle that we're living. Because initially, Alzheimer's and dementia, it was for the elderly people over 65 years and above. But now it's actually the age is coming to younger and younger. I've seen cases of even people at 28, but not in Kenya, that is in the UK. But people are getting it at younger ages, and it's the lifestyle that we lead, the sedentary lives that we live. We don't socialize. Most of us are socializing is through either the phone. We don't go and sit down and talk to people. We don't exercise. We don't eat right. So some of this could be risks that are contributing to having people getting it at an earlier age.
And the brain has been, described like a supercomputer. So you can imagine a situation where then someone has a problem with the brain and, memory loss sets in. What treatment is available, once Alzheimer's is diagnosed?
It also depends on what stage it has been diagnosed at.
Yeah.
So different people will be at different drugs. Others will tell you they're on Aricept. Others will be given different drugs. But the one thing that we know, and we have been told by neurologists, is the condition does not slow down the progress of the condition. It just makes it manageable, and then after some time, of course, many people have even said that it doesn't work after some time after taking the medication. So mostly it's managing it would be through exercising. Let them do their daily exercises, even if it's a walk for 10-20 minutes, eating right, just showing them love. By the way, will make you just the love, the smile, just holding their hands and assuring them you're there to support them. And then also not moving them from familiar grounds, because if they are, for example, living in Kahawa Sukari, then you move them to Keno, for example, they will not be able to cope. So leave them in the same house they're used to. That also makes them live longer. But if you keep moving them, it also there's a decline in how they progress. Yes.
And in terms of socialization and conversations, how would you describe the conversations of a person who has Alzheimer's?
It's very interesting that you'd ask that, because there are days when they have lucid moments, and so you'll have a conversation like it's a normal day. Actually, it will be seconds, and then after that they change and they forget that they had that conversation with you. I remember one day my dad woke up on a Tuesday and he wanted to go to church, and so I thought I needed to help him, and all this time I'd been telling him about my son and he couldn't remember my son. So I took the calendar and I marked for him, today is Tuesday, so we will go to church on Sunday. And then he looks at me and tells me, do I look like your 2-year-old son? And so I was like, oh my goodness, he remembered my son, but he was very pissed off by the way I handled him to actually have that moment to remember. So a lot of times we tell people, enjoy the moments. Yeah. Sometimes they will remember, sometimes they will not. Other days he'll tell me I'm not his child. The next day he tells me, how have you been? I've missed you. And then he calls you by name. So they also have good days and bad days. So as a caregiver or somebody who's caring for somebody with dementia, know that it is not their choice to forget you or to behave the way they are behaving. It's the condition, it's the disease, and that is how it progresses.
Yeah. And culturally, Alzheimer's has been associated with older people. And you have a family where they have an older person who has this condition. How are you working with families to get to understand how to handle the mental changes?
What we do usually, most of the time, one, we run a support group to help families understand, especially the caregivers. What happens usually, there's always a communication breakdown with the person living with dementia and the family members, and even the family members amongst themselves. So what we do, we'll sit down with the family members, get to understand where are their challenges. Is it communication? Is it going to the bathroom? Is it dressing? So that you come up with a model that they are able to work with and that can help them. Also, something else to help families is that if they have realized somebody has dementia, have a proper diagnosis done so that you can know what form of dementia it is. Is it Alzheimer's? Is it another type of dementia? And then have a schedule so that they are used to a schedule and they live on that schedule. Because if you keep changing their lives, today you're serving them lunch at 12, tomorrow you serve it at 2 o'clock, they get confused.
So they like routine.
So they have to have a routine.
Yes. Okay. So in the next 5 years, I know you've been, having a couple of trainings and creating awareness on Alzheimer's. What are the changes you want to see in Kenya?
One of the things I would want to see is, first, we have a dementia plan in Kenya. The dementia plan will address the issues of how the caregivers are going to be supported, how the people with dementia and people living with dementia are going to be handled, hospitals, what kind of treatment, because most of the time you move from one doctor to another before you get a proper diagnosis. Now we just need a one-stop shop where this is what the condition is and this is how I progress from there. Another thing, just having a community that is friendly to dementia. I mean, a lot of us, we meet an old man, like I know a number of times my dad would stop people and say, I'm lost, and they're like, Mzee wacha mchezo, why are you pretending that you cannot remember where you're from? So people caring for the people who are having dementia, being supportive, just taking time to just sit with them and let them repeat their stories so many times, but just sit there and listen to them. So a community that actually has love surrounding people living with dementia.
Thank you. We wish you the best in your awareness, and we hope that more awareness will be will grow in terms of people getting to know what dementia is and Alzheimer's. So congrats and keep up the good work. Liz is passionate about creating awareness on Alzheimer's, and as she says, it is very important to include them into our lives. Let us love them, let us appreciate them, and let us allow them to live their moments. Thank you.